Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today I thought I'd do a short form video and shine the spotlight on a recent discovery of an application, an AI chord creating, or let's say chord progression creating application called chordsequenceai.com. I'll put all the links you will need down in the description. What I love about this application is it's open source and it's free. So also if you're a software developer or coder, you could get into the nuts and bolts behind this application and transform it and develop it further. So what I'm going to do in today's video is I'm going to show you around the interface, how I kind of have been using it, and I'll give you a demonstration with it, with the chord progressions that I come up with, or a chord progression, drop it into Ableton Live so you can kind of see how it can work. So first of all, when you open up the application, it's in your browser on your computer. You get a lot of help options in here, which is great, and the developers have a 3-part video series that you can watch pretty much simply by clicking the little question mark over here in the top right corner. Obviously today I'm going to run you through how it works without studying videos and things like that. I've just kind of learnt the interface pretty quickly by myself, but there is some great help tools available there. Also, if we just click on this page here for a second and take a look, pop over to the introduction and just have a quick read about what the developers are talking about, their own description of the product. ChordSequenceAI is a project that aims to democratize chord progression composition by using AI as a guide in the vast space of possibilities. It aims to be a supportive tool rather than a replacement, enhancing creativity, offering new perspectives in musical composition, and helping to overcome writer's block. The project is open source and free to use, and the code is available on GitHub. So just touching on that for a second, this is exactly the kind of tools and integration that I would personally like to see a lot more of in the future as AI comes into the world of music. Collaborative tools, things we can have fun with, things that are assistance to what we do when we go about making music, rather than taking over the role of the creator or the music producer. Anyway, I'm going to jump off my soapbox, close that window down, and we're going to go and get started. So what you see is a nice kind of clean interface, and we've got this musical toolbar up here in a time signature of 4/4. If you want to change that, you can. I think we can easily do 3/4 or 2/4, all those good things. We've got a metronome, we've got a playhead, we've got a cog, and if we click that, we can see that we can loop the chord progressions and chords we come up with, and we can also change our BPM or tempo. We've got undo, redo. We've got a little box here that we can look at in the future about how we can sort of see the chord variants of the chord we're working with, how to delete chords, deleting individual chords, deleting all of them. And then up in the top right here, we've got a musical note. If we click that, we can transpose the chords we come up with, which is great. And then there's 2 icons here related to how we can save the work we've come up with inside of the app. The first one is pretty cool. If we click on that, essentially that would take us to somewhere on our computer. So for example, if we want to save the work we're doing here in the app into a folder and recall those chord progressions, that would be a great way to work. So think about, you come up with a great chord progression, you save it into a folder on your computer there, and you could re-import it back into here, edit it a little bit, resave it or export it. So really good feature that, because you can import chords in here as well as create from scratch. The second icon is the one I'm using pretty much at the moment, and if I click on that one, I can export the work I'm doing in here in 2 formats, .chseq or .mid. I'm going to use the .midi. That's going to give me a MIDI file that then I can then drag directly into my DAW. So let's get started. If we click a plus button here, you'll see a little box pop up over here on the timeline with a question mark. And if we click into that question mark, you will see below the chord suggestions for that particular position. Sorry, I just realized I needed to clear something I'd done earlier. I'll walk you through what that does in a moment, this little piano keyboard here. So if we click in that question mark, as you can see, now we see all the beautiful keys, and we also see lots and lots and lots of different chord types. So let's start by popping in a C here. Okay, and you're also going to get a piano preview of that. If we wish to resize the chords within the timeline here, simply a lot like Ableton or DAWs, we can just hover over the right edge of the chord we've added, and then we can drag it left or right to lengthen or shorten the chord. So let's say we shorten the chord to a C major like it is here. And by the way, let's have a quick look at this now. If we click that icon there, you can see that it shows me the C major chord and variants of that, which is pretty cool. So if we want to change that, we can obviously go ahead and do it that way as well. So that's the direct variance of C major. So let's close that up. We can also just watch out for this one, but if we literally click around now the different chords that are on offer here, we will be switching out the chord there. So if you're wanting to add the next chord, you need to go and click plus. So it caught me just a couple of times that I'd sort of selected C and then I hadn't clicked plus, and so I'm just overwriting the chord essentially that's already here. So when we're ready for our next chord, we're going to click plus, and we're going to click in the question box, and you can now see that these are the suggested chords that will follow C, and they're sort of in color from stronger suggestions to more weaker or more obscure ones. As you can see, when we get down to F minor here, it can work with C, but it's getting fainter and fainter in color. And there's a decay slider over to the right here that will kind of adjust that. So if you pull that all the way to the left, it's just going to give you the most strongest suggestions. And if you pull it to the right, as you can see, it's opening up more suggestions and grading it, as I said, from stronger to more obscure and weaker. It reminds me a lot of a paid application that I won't name, but I'm sure a lot of you might well be familiar with, that does chords and chord progression. And thinking about that, this is free and it's open source, so pretty amazing stuff. Shout out to the developers of chordsequenceai.com. So let's bring the decay back in and let's maybe roll with an F. Or actually, let's maybe go a little bit more exotic. So let's go with a D minor 7 here. So straight away, we can go to the cog. We've got looping on, that's great. So if we hit play, we can listen to that progression, and you can switch things in real time. So whichever chord you're selected on, but it will do that, which I noticed, it will stop the playback when you do swap something out in real time. So you will need to re-trigger playback, and also if you adjust the length of the chords, it will do the same. So I'm going to go back to D minor 7, just make sure that it's the highlighted chord, which it is. Great. So let's go to D minor 7 and let's go plus, and let's go with our next chord suggestion. Okay, how about an E minor here? I like that movement. Let's maybe go for a short chord again, and now plus again. What are they going to suggest that should come after E minor? So we've got some interesting options here. Maybe let's have a G perhaps. Let's have a listen to that. That's a bit too big a jump for me. So maybe I'll try the F here. Yeah, I quite like that. So that's going to be my chord progression that I've created in here, just to sort of show you a couple more things about the interface here of the application. You can also click in this search box here and then search for a particular chord. So you could type in there whatever you're looking for. This would be everything that's in E, which is a pretty handy feature. And then you can also, so let's clear that, you can also click on this keyboard here, which I really quite like, and you can plug in a chord. So that would be C minor, for example, and then you can kind of decide like what you want from whatever notes you've plugged in there. Do you want variations of that? So if you've got that box ticked, then it will also give you variations of this pattern you've put in here. Or you can also drop down this little menu here and filter what it's going to also do. So you could say exact match for the notes you've played, at most, at least. It's kind of giving you the boundaries, let's say, of what you're doing here. So if we have, say, an exact match, it's just going to give me now C minor, which is essentially the chord that I was drawing in there. So let's remove that and let's come back to our chord here, and we had an F in there. I'm just going to check that. But as I said, it took me not too long to figure out how to use this. It's nice and fast, and I love all these little details and features. So let's now export this chord progression as a MIDI file, and I'm going to pop it into a folder I've already created, which should help me line up nicely with Ableton Live. So let's do that. So I want to choose that folder, drop it into there. That should be nice and fast. And then I'm just going to do a switch of my screen here now over to Ableton Live. Okay, so let's jump into there. And just over here, I've got a 909 drum kit, just for context, and I've got an Ableton default preset called Trinidad Plucks. So let's grab our chord, MIDI chords that we just created there, bring that over. We'll just make sure, actually, just quickly. So let's pop it over into here, and we can see our chord progression there, and let's hit play. So pretty cool. Like, basically the ChordSequenceAI.com app, it isn't going to do anything fancy with the chords. That is, like, it's not going to humanize them for you. It's not going to change the timing of it. It's just going to provide you with the block chords that we sort of created by, you know, changing the lengths of the chords, which, as you can see, is reflected here in the MIDI. We've got shorter and longer chords here. But other than that, the rest of the work you're going, if you wish to adjust them, you're going to need to do inside of your DAW. And if you do follow my channel, perhaps you will already know that I do weekly live streams every Sunday for a couple of hours in Ableton Live, making electronic music and teaching various things about music production. And I've recently been doing a series of videos all about music theory for electronic music producers. It was beginner friendly, and last week's was melody, but the week before was harmony. So if you haven't seen that video and you're wondering how to make nice, smooth, buttery, sweet sounding chord progressions, then I suggest you check that video out, because I go into there and sort of show you how to revoice the chords and make them all sort of work together in the best way, as I said, in smoothest sounding way as possible. I'm going to leave this chord progression pretty much as it is. We could revoice it slightly. Perhaps this top note of this chord could go down, and then we've got this nice kind of voicing stepping up. Let's have a listen to that, and let's also bring all of our notes up an octave, so it's just a little bit further out the piano. And let's drop our 909 in. Hop over to the instrument. So you get the idea. So let's duplicate those chords down, and let's maybe just do a little bit of a quick variation just to show you. So if we were working with these chords, I would select again all the notes here. I'd like to get a bit of human feeling in, so I'd randomize all the velocities. I'm going to bring the value down on that though, so it's not too much. Okay, and then what I might also do is then start to do sort of like some, you know, let's say house kind of chopped chords. So I'm going to bring all of these into, let's say, a 16th, matching my grid in the background there. And then what we might do is select all of these chords and we're going to move them across so they would be syncopated when they play with the drum groove. And then we can do something like this. So dotted eighths, which is the interval between what the different chord chops at the moment that I'm putting together here. Something like this. Let's hit play on that. Let's also give it another color just so we know it's a different clip. And then we can elevate it a little bit more. Something simple like that, and then we could go back to our synth over here and just do a very fast little bit of processing. So we've got a little bit of vibe to it as well behind the synth. All right. So yeah, really nice and simple, but I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of, you know, what we can do with the raw materials that this application can provide us with. So on that note, I'm going to sort of wrap things up. As I said, shout out to the developers of chordsequenceai.com. This is what as I said a little bit earlier in the video, I hope is the future for AI in music, is fun tools, collaborative tools like this. The fact that this is open source and free is really, really cool. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope to see you on the channel at some point soon. Do remember as well, there's weekly, as I said, live streams every Sunday for a couple of hours, making all sorts of stuff, house, techno, melodic house, and as I said, lots of tips and tricks that I've learned over a couple of decades in the industry, making electronic music and using Ableton Live. I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you very much for watching the video, and till the next time, over and out, everybody. Ciao for now.